Airdna's chief economist, Jamie Lane, is well known as an expert in the short-term rental industry. He's appeared on TV,
Chief economist, Jamie Lane. Jamie, this is fascinating.
on podcasts,
Doesn't surprise me that Airbnb is going different.
and on stage to share his insights for STR hosts and investors around the world. Now, he's tackling his biggest challenge yet: purchasing, setting up, and running a successful short-term rental property.
Can Jamie go from STR data expert to real-life Airbnb host? This is Jamie's Lane Change. Once Jamie and his wife Alex had decided that they wanted to invest in a property to use as a short-term rental, the next step was to decide where. And as it turns out, that's a little more complicated than it sounds.
You want me to start?
Let me start, you can fill in. We wanted to pick a region or an area that we could get to in a reasonable amount of time because we knew that part of this was that we wanted to use it as well.
We wanted it to be a good investment, but we also wanted to occasionally use it, like if it wasn't rented out. I had my list of things, and she had her list of things. Like
Civilization versus
mountain biking.
mountain biking.
Yeah.
I'm not against mountain biking, it just wasn't.
But it was funny, one thing that where it crossed was part of my criteria was a decent ROI. It had to be a good investment. Like we weren't just buying a second home.
Right.
Clearly finding the data is like the closer you are to civilization, like bars, restaurants, and things to do.
Or like
And-
cities that are known kind of tourist destinations.
Right. Brings up the occupancy and ADR that you're able to achieve. So it did become more and more part of the equation. If we were just buying a second home, I would have been perfectly fine in the middle of nowhere. That's not what was going to achieve a good ROI and not meet Alex's criteria. We really wanted a water feature.
Something water related because
Yeah.
both of our kids just really enjoy the water.
And then also, I wanted space at the property that we could add amenities that would be important for the property getting booked. As we were looking at properties, so many of them just didn't have a yard. They're on the side of a cliff and you couldn't do anything except maybe what's on the porch. And that it really made it hard to add additional amenities. So we wanted something on water, some space to add amenities to the property as we sort of built it out.
Was there anything that surprised either of you? Like, oh, I didn't realize that was a priority for you.
Alex was very adamant that there needed to be separate spot for the kids to like hang out.
I love my children, I'm just saying.
And I felt like it became very apparent. We stayed in this vacation home for Christmas this past year, and the only spot to hang out was in the living room.
It was a tiny living room.
We had like
Somebody was always
8
having to sit at like the dining room table or on the floor. Or it was
Right.
just,
You could never have everyone in one room hanging out. It really like showed us the value of having multiple different spots for everyone to be hanging out in.
With their priorities identified, it was time to start looking at different markets. Thinking about driving distance, access to the outdoors, and water features, there were 6 markets that Jamie and Alex felt they could explore for potential investment properties.
There were a couple markets that met the criteria. North Georgia, clear market. Lake Lanier, a market. North Carolina mountains, 2-hour drive. Clearly could have been a market that we
like
invested
Kiska
in.
National Forest area? Or?
Yeah, like Cashers, Highland.
Yeah.
We used to go camping up there all the time. Lake Hartwell, 2-hour drive. Her uncle
we
has
did
a house.
consider lake life as
Yeah.
an option.
And just outside the driving distance is like, you get down to Savannah, Charleston, all like 4 hours, just far enough away that it's like,
We thought about it, but
yeah, it would just be outside of like, just pop down for a weekend
Yeah.
sort of thing. And we really wanted it to be like where we could go into a weekend and it could be not booked and we just decide to like drive up on a Friday. Looking at the markets that met our criteria on AirDNA, it became pretty obvious which one we should choose. The North Georgia mountain struck out from all the others because it had a much better AirDNA market score from the surrounding markets that we were choosing between. This was largely due to the high investability score. So what is the price of homes in that market relative to the revenue that can earn, and a much better seasonality score than the other markets. And this market we see and is essentially booked from June through to the end of December.
Having identified the ideal market using AirDNA, the next step for Jamie and Alex was to start looking at submarkets.
There was a lot of different factors that my wife and I were considering. Pretty quickly, we narrowed down on the market. There's like 13 different submarkets in North Georgia and pretty distinct submarkets. You're actually able to compare submarkets against each other, which I think is one of the coolest things within AirDNA. So you can look at occupancy levels for each submarket. You can look at investability for each submarket. You can look at how demand and supply growth has been growing within each submarket. With the run up in home values on the western side of the state, we'd actually seen a pretty significant increase in supply in the Blue Ridge, LJ area, which we were able to compare. On the Helen side, not as much, though still pretty significant increases. And then what we did find with Helen, and really the area around Helen, was there'd been a lot of the same sort of high premiums and rates that you get from like a Blue Ridge and Helen. Like, they're very much the two areas that tourists coming from outside the state go to, but without as much of a run up in home values. And there was a lot of investment potential there, and a lot of the reason why that bubbled up to one of the best places to invest for 2024.
So that's where Jamie and Alex invested. Helen, Georgia, one of AirDNA's best places to invest for 2024 and home to the Chattahoochee-Oconee National Forest.
Deciding on a market to invest in is a huge step forward in Jamie's process towards opening his first short-term rental. But the process is barely beginning. In our next episode, we'll take a look at how Jamie and Alex identified a property within the market that they wanted to invest in. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications for our YouTube channel so that you don't miss the next installment of Jamie's Lane Change.